The morning sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink as Maya Richardson cruised down Maple Street in her custom-designed sports car. The vehicle was a masterpiece, sleek lines flowing from front to back, paint shimmering like liquid silver under the light. She'd spent 3 years perfecting every detail, every curve, every aspect of this beauty. This wasn't just any car. This was her baby, her creation, the prototype that would launch next season. Maya hummed along to the jazz playing softly through the speakers, her fingers tapping the steering wheel. She was heading to the office early to finalize some last-minute details for the big presentation. Her team at Velocity Motors was counting on her, and she never let them down. At 34, she'd become one of the youngest lead designers in the automotive industry, breaking barriers and proving that talent knew no color or gender. The neighborhood she drove through was pristine. Huge houses with manicured lawns lined both sides of the street. Oak trees provided shade over the sidewalks. Everything screamed money and privilege. Maya barely noticed anymore. She'd been driving this route to work for 2 years now. Then she saw the flashing lights in her rearview mirror. Her heart sank a little, but she stayed calm. She hadn't been speeding. Her registration was current. Insurance paid up. Everything was in order. Maybe a taillight was out. She signaled and pulled over smoothly, putting the car in park and placing her hands visible on the steering wheel. Her father had taught her this years ago. Always keep your hands where they can see them, he'd said. Don't give them any excuse. The officer approached her window with heavy steps. Maya could see him in her side mirror, a white man in his 40s with a thick neck and mirrored sunglasses. His hand rested on his belt close to his weapon. She took a slow breath and rolled down her window. License and registration, he barked, not even offering a greeting. Good morning, officer, Maya said politely. May I ask why you pulled me over? License and registration now. His voice was cold, authoritative. Maya reached slowly for her purse in the passenger seat, announcing each movement. I'm reaching for my purse now. My wallet is inside. She retrieved her license and then opened the glove compartment carefully. Getting my registration from here. The officer snatched the documents from her hand without a thank you. He studied her license for a long moment, his jaw working like he was chewing on something bitter. Then he looked at the registration, then back at her, then at the car. This your car? He asked, suspicion dripping from every word. Yes, sir. As you can see on the registration, I'm the owner, he snorted. Right. And I'm supposed to believe you own a $200,000 sports car? Maya felt the familiar tightness in her chest, the one that came whenever she faced this kind of ignorance. But she kept her voice level. The registration is right there in your hand, officer. My name matches my license. Could be stolen papers. Could be a lot of things. He leaned down, peering into her car, his eyes scanning the leather interior, the custom dashboard, the high-end sound system. Where do you work? I'm a designer at Velocity Motors. His laugh was harsh and mocking. A designer, right. What do you design, the floor mats? Maya's fingers tightened on the steering wheel, but she maintained her composure. I'm the lead automotive designer. I actually designed this car you're looking at. Sure you did? He straightened up, pulling out his radio. This vehicle was reported stolen. That's impossible, Maya said, her voice rising slightly despite her efforts to stay calm. I own this car. I designed it. It's a prototype from my company. There's no way it was reported stolen. Are you calling me a liar? The officer's face reddened, his voice growing louder. I'm saying there must be a mistake. Please just call Velocity Motors. They can verify everything. By now, people from the nearby houses had started to notice the commotion. A woman in yoga pants stopped her morning jog to watch. An older man walking his dog paused on the sidewalk. A teenager appeared on a porch across the street, phone already out and recording. The officer noticed the growing audience and seemed to puff up, playing to the crowd. Ma'am, I need you to step out of the vehicle. On what grounds? Maya asked. I've provided all my documentation. Everything is in order. I said, step out of the vehicle. Don't make me ask again. Maya's mind raced. She knew her rights, but she also knew how quickly these situations could turn deadly. She'd seen the news reports, heard the stories, attended the memorials. But something in her refused to be bullied, refused to accept this blatant injustice. Officer, what's your badge number? She asked, keeping her voice steady. His face went from red to purple. You trying to be difficult? You want to add resisting arrest to your charges? I haven't been charged with anything. And I haven't resisted anything. I'm sitting here calmly asking for your badge number, which is my right. Another police car pulled up, lights flashing. A younger officer stepped out, looking confused about the situation. The first officer, whose name tag read Hartman, waved him over aggressively. We got a stolen vehicle here. Suspect is being uncooperative, Hartman announced loudly, ensuring everyone watching could hear. Officer, please, Maya tried again, forcing herself to sound reasonable despite the panic rising in her chest. Just make one phone call to Velocity Motors. Ask for the executive office. They'll confirm who I am. Out of the car. Last warning. Hartman's hand moved to his weapon. The teenager with the phone moved closer, making sure to capture everything. The woman in yoga pants had her phone out now, too. More neighbors emerged from their houses, drawn by the spectacle. Maya made a decision. She would comply physically, but not quietly. I'm stepping out of the vehicle now, she announced clearly. For the cameras and witnesses. I want everyone here to know that I'm the legal owner of this car. My name is Maya Richardson. I'm a designer at Velocity Motors. This is wrong, and I will be filing a complaint. As she opened the door and stepped out, hands raised and visible, she caught the smug satisfaction on Hartman's face. He'd been waiting for this, she realized. This wasn't about a stolen car or broken laws. This was about putting her in what he thought was her place. The second officer looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. Hartman, maybe we should just run the registration properly through the system first? I know a stolen vehicle when I see one, Hartman snapped. He grabbed Maya's wrist, yanking it down roughly. You're under arrest for grand theft auto. The cold metal of handcuffs bit into Maya's wrists. Around her, phones continued recording. The woman in yoga pants was arguing with Hartman now, saying this didn't look right. The older man with the dog was shaking his head in disgust, but Maya barely heard any of it. As she was pushed toward the police car, her own beautiful creation sitting there on the street like evidence against her, she felt something harden inside her chest. Not anger exactly, though that was there too. It was determination. Crystal clear, unshakable determination. They had no idea who they'd just arrested, and they were about to find out. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and floor cleaner. Maya sat in the back of the patrol car, hands still cuffed behind her, watching as they processed her vehicle. Hartman was on his radio, talking to someone at the station, his voice full of false authority and pride. The younger officer, whose name tag read Chen, kept glancing at her through the rearview mirror, looking troubled. When they finally pulled into the station's garage, Maya's phone had been ringing nonstop in the evidence bag. Her assistant would be worried. Her team would be wondering where she was. The presentation was in 4 hours, and she was sitting here in handcuffs like a criminal. Inside, the fluorescent lights were harsh and unforgiving. Officers moved about their morning routines, barely glancing at her as Hartman paraded her through like a trophy. He was already telling the story to anyone who would listen. Caught her driving a $200,000 sports car through Riverside, he announced to the desk sergeant. Claims she designed it herself. Can you believe that? The desk sergeant, a heavy-set man with gray hair, looked Maya up and down with barely concealed skepticism. Designer, huh? What did she really do? Steal it from a dealership? That's what I'm thinking, Hartman agreed. Had all these fake papers too, good ones. This is part of a bigger operation, I'm telling you. Maya finally spoke up, her voice clear and firm despite her situation. I want to make a phone call. That's my legal right. You'll get your call when we're done processing you, the desk sergeant said dismissively, turning back to his computer. I'm entitled to a phone call immediately. I know my rights. Hartman stepped closer, invading her space. You know your rights? That's funny. Most car thieves don't talk about rights. That's because I'm not a car thief, Maya said, meeting his eyes directly. I'm a lead designer at Velocity Motors. That car is my prototype, and you've made a serious mistake. Lead designer. Another officer laughed from across the room. That's a new one. Usually they say it's their cousin's car or their boyfriend bought it for them. The casual racism in his tone made Maya's stomach turn, but she refused to let them see her rattled. Her father's words echoed in her mind again. Stay calm. Stay smart. Document everything. She looked around the room, noting names, badge numbers, the time on the wall clock. 9:47 in the morning, they took her fingerprints, mugshots, removed her jewelry, her watch, her belt. Everything went into a plastic bag with a number on it. The female officer doing the processing was gentler than the others, but she wouldn't meet Maya's eyes. Probably used to this, Maya thought. Probably saw innocent people treated this way every single day and had learned to look away. I need to call my lawyer, Maya said again. Patricia Chen at Morrison & Associates. Morrison & Associates? The desk sergeant looked up, something flickering across his face. Recognition, maybe? Fear? But then he shrugged. You can make your call after we finish the paperwork. They led her to a holding cell, a small concrete room with a metal bench and a toilet in the corner. The door clanged shut with a finality that made Maya's heart race despite her determination to stay calm. She'd never been in a cell before, never even had a speeding ticket. Through the small window in the door, she could hear the officers talking and laughing. Their voices carried down the hallway. $200,000 car, someone said. Where'd she steal it from, a movie set? Probably some rich guy's mistress who took the car when he dumped her, another voice suggested. Nah, I bet it's part of that car theft ring we heard about. You know, the one stealing luxury vehicles and shipping them overseas? Their laughter stung more than their words. They'd already tried her, convicted her, and written her story without knowing a single true fact about her life. She was just another black woman who couldn't possibly have earned what she had. Maya sat on the cold metal bench and forced herself to breathe slowly. In through her nose, out through her mouth. She thought about her mother, who'd worked 3 jobs to put her through design school. Her father, who'd taught her that excellence wasn't optional, it was survival. Her younger brother, who looked up to her as proof that they could make it in this world. What would she tell him after this? That even when you do everything right, even when you work yourself to exhaustion, even when you reach the top of your field, there will still be people who look at your skin and see nothing but stereotypes? Hours passed. The light from the small window changed as the sun moved across the sky. Maya asked twice more for her phone call and was told in a minute each time. Her presentation had definitely started without her. Her team would be scrambling, wondering what happened. Her boss would be furious. Finally, around 1 in the afternoon, the desk sergeant appeared at her cell door. Your lawyer's here, he said, and something in his voice had changed. The smugness was gone, replaced by something that might have been nervousness. They brought her to a small interview room where Patricia Chen was already waiting. Patricia was a small woman in her 50s, barely 5 feet tall, but she radiated the kind of power that came from 3 decades of winning impossible cases. Her expression when she saw Maya was thunderous. Are you hurt? Patricia asked immediately, her eyes scanning Maya for injuries. No, just humiliated and angry. Patricia turned to the officer standing by the door. I need a moment alone with my client, now. The officer hesitated, then stepped out. Patricia waited until the door closed before she spoke again, her voice low and intense. Maya, I need you to tell me everything, every single detail, starting from the moment he pulled you over. Maya recounted the entire story, from the traffic stop to the arrest to the mocking comments she'd overheard. Patricia took notes, her pen moving rapidly across her legal pad, her jaw getting tighter with each detail. They denied you a phone call for over 3 hours, Patricia said. That's a violation right there. Did they read you your rights? Maya thought back. No. He just said I was under arrest for grand theft auto. Patricia's smile was sharp and dangerous. They're in so much trouble they don't even know it yet. Do you know what vehicle they claimed was stolen? My car, the prototype. I called Velocity Motors. Your CEO is losing his mind. He's already issued a statement to the press. Your arrest is on the news, Maya. The videos from those neighbors are everywhere. Maya felt her stomach drop. It's public? Very public. And that's going to work in our favor. Patricia stood up, straightening her suit jacket. I'm going to get you out of here. Then we're going to make them regret they ever laid hands on you. She went to the door and knocked sharply. When the officer opened it, Patricia's voice carried down the hallway, loud enough for everyone to hear. I'm going to need to speak with whoever's in charge here. My client, Dr. Maya Richardson, lead automotive designer at Velocity Motors and owner of 17 automotive design patents, has been illegally detained, denied her right to counsel, and subjected to racial profiling. And unless someone produces evidence of an actual crime in the next 5 minutes, we're going to have a very serious problem. The word doctor made several heads turn. Maya had her PhD in industrial design from MIT, but she rarely used the title. Patricia was using it now like a weapon, and Maya could see it hitting its target. Officers who'd been laughing earlier suddenly looked uncomfortable. The desk sergeant appeared, his face now pale. There might have been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Patricia's voice could have cut glass. You arrested a woman for driving her own car. A car she designed. A car that was never reported stolen because it belongs to her. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a lawsuit. She slapped a folder on the desk, papers spilling out. Here's her registration. Her insurance. A letter from Velocity Motors confirming her position and her ownership of the prototype vehicle, her employee ID, and a complete list of every civil rights violation that occurred today. The sergeant's hands shook slightly as he picked up the papers. Behind him, Hartman appeared, still looking cocky until he saw Patricia's expression and the documents spread across the desk. You're making a big deal out of nothing, Hartman said. I was just doing my job. Patricia turned to him slowly. Your job is to protect and serve. You arrested an innocent woman because you couldn't believe a black woman could afford a nice car. That's not police work. That's racism, and it's going to cost you your career. The room went silent. Every officer had stopped what they were doing. Maya could see the moment they realized this wasn't going to quietly disappear. This wasn't going to be swept under the rug like whatever other complaints had been filed before. Release my client now, Patricia said, and start preparing for the storm that's coming. Maya walked out of the police station at 3 in the afternoon, 6 hours after she'd been pulled over. The sun was bright, almost blinding after the fluorescent lights inside. But what made her stop in her tracks wasn't the sunshine. It was the crowd. News vans lined the street, their satellite dishes pointing skyward. Reporters stood with microphones, camera operators beside them. There must have been 30 or 40 people all waiting. When they saw her emerge, it was like someone had lit a fuse. Miss Richardson. Miss Richardson. How does it feel to be released? Were you racially profiled? Is it true you designed the car yourself? Patricia's hand on her elbow steadied her. You don't have to say anything, her lawyer whispered. We can walk straight to the car. But Maya looked at those cameras and thought about every person who'd been through something similar without the resources to fight back. Every person whose story never made the news. She stepped forward to the microphones. My name is Maya Richardson, she said, her voice carrying across the crowd. I'm the lead automotive designer at Velocity Motors. This morning, I was pulled over while driving a car that I designed, a car that I own, and I was arrested for theft. I was handcuffed, humiliated, and detained for hours because an officer couldn't believe a black woman could afford the vehicle I was driving. The cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled in their notebooks. Maya kept going. This isn't just about me. This is about every person of color who's been stopped for driving while black. Every person who's been assumed to be a criminal because of their skin color. I have resources. I have a lawyer. I have a platform. But what about the people who don't? What happens to them? Are you planning to sue? Someone shouted. My lawyer and I will be discussing all options, Maya said. But what I really want is change. Real change. Thank you. Patricia guided her away before the questions could start again. They climbed into Patricia's Mercedes, and as soon as the doors closed, Maya felt her composure crack. Her hands started shaking. You did great, Patricia said softly, starting the engine. Really great. I can't believe this is happening, Maya whispered. Believe it. And it's about to get bigger. Patricia wasn't wrong. By the time they reached Maya's apartment, her phone was exploding with notifications. She'd had to turn it off just to stop the constant buzzing. Her assistant had called 47 times. Her mother, 12. Her brother, 8. There were hundreds of text messages, emails, social media notifications. Inside her apartment, Maya finally turned her phone back on. The first call she made was to her mother. Baby girl. Her mother's voice cracked with emotion. I saw the news. Are you okay? I'm fine, Mom, I promise. Shaken up, but fine. Your father is so angry he can barely speak. We're so sorry this happened to you. They talked for 20 minutes, her mother alternating between worry and fury. After promising to visit on Sunday, Maya hung up and started going through her messages. Her CEO had called personally. Her entire design team had sent supportive messages. But there were also messages from people she hadn't heard from in years. People crawling out of the woodwork now that she was in the news. She ignored those and opened her laptop. The story was everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. The headlines ranged from straightforward reporting to outraged commentary. Award-winning designer arrested while driving her own creation. Police. Arrest black woman for car theft. She designed the car. Viral video shows designer handcuffed over her own prototype. The video from the teenager's phone had been viewed over 3 million times. Maya watched it once, seeing herself from the outside. She looked so calm in the video, so composed even as Hartman grabbed her wrist and cuffed her. But she could see the fear in her own eyes, the tension in her shoulders. The comments section was a war zone. Thousands of people expressing outrage and support, but also the inevitable trolls claiming she must have done something wrong, that there were two sides to every story, that people shouldn't rush to judgment. Then she saw her company's official statement, posted on all their social media accounts. Velocity Motors stands firmly behind our lead designer, Dr. Maya Richardson. The treatment she received today is unacceptable and represents the kind of racial profiling that has no place in our society. We are conducting our own investigation and will cooperate fully with any legal proceedings. Maya is not just an employee. She is a visionary who has revolutionized our design philosophy. An injustice against her is an injustice against us all. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. She'd worked for Velocity for 8 years, building her way up from junior designer to head of the department. They'd always treated her fairly, but this level of public support meant everything. Her personal social media had blown up too. She rarely posted, using her accounts mainly to share her work, but now she had tens of thousands of new followers. People were sharing her designs, her accomplishments, her awards. They were telling her story in a way the police never bothered to discover. There were photos of her accepting the Innovative Design Award 2 years ago, videos of her TED Talk about the future of sustainable automotive design, articles about her being named one of the top designers under 40 in the industry. Her entire career laid out for the world to see, and then she saw the hashtag, Justice for Maya. It was trending. Nationally trending. People across the country were sharing their own stories of racial profiling, of being stopped for no reason, of being treated like criminals when they'd done nothing wrong. Her story had touched something raw and real, and people were responding. Celebrities started weighing in. A famous actor tweeted, "This is 2025 and we're still dealing with this? Support Maya Richardson. This has to stop." A popular singer posted, "Designing cars while black is not a crime. Standing with Maya Richardson." Even other designers and industry leaders were speaking out, people Maya had admired for years. They were calling for accountability, for justice, for the kind of change she'd mentioned in her statement outside the station. But not everyone was supportive. Some people dug up old photos looking for anything to discredit her. Someone found a picture from college where she was at a party, holding a red cup, and tried to make it seem scandalous. Others questioned whether she really designed the car herself or just took credit for her team's work. Maya knew this was coming. Patricia had warned her. "They'll try to destroy your character," her lawyer had said. "They always do. Just remember the truth and don't engage." By evening, the major news networks were running the story. Maya watched herself on the 6 o'clock news, analysts discussing racial profiling in America, the footage of her arrest playing on loop. One network had brought in a former police chief who defended Hartman, saying officers make difficult decisions in split seconds. Another had a civil rights lawyer who called the arrest textbook discrimination. Her phone rang. "Patricia, have you been watching the news?" her lawyer asked. "Unfortunately, yes." "Good. The police department is scrambling. I've already received 2 calls from their legal team. They want to talk settlement." Maya's heart raced. "Already? It's been less than 12 hours. They know they messed up, bad, and they know this story isn't going away. The longer it stays in the news, the worse it looks for them." Patricia paused. "But Maya, we need to talk about what you want out of this. Is it money? Is it an apology? Is it Hartman's job? Because we can probably get all 3 if we push hard enough." Maya thought about the hashtag, about all those people sharing their stories, about the teenager who'd filmed her arrest and the woman in yoga pants who'd argued with Hartman. She thought about her little brother who was still in college and all the times he'd been followed in stores or stopped by security for no reason. "I want more than that," she said slowly. "I want change. Real change. That's harder to get," Patricia warned, "and it takes longer. I don't care. I didn't ask for this platform, but now I have it. I need to use it for something bigger than just myself. She could hear the smile in Patricia's voice. I was hoping you'd say that, because I think we can do something special here, but it's going to be a fight. I'm ready, Maya said, and she was. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, scrolling through messages of support from people she'd never met. A single mother who'd been pulled over 6 times in 1 year for matching a description. A college student who'd been stopped while jogging in his own neighborhood. A teacher who'd been handcuffed in front of his students because someone thought he didn't belong at the school where he worked. Their stories broke her heart. But they also strengthened her resolve. Around midnight, she posted on her social media for the first time since the arrest. Thank you all for the overwhelming support today. I'm okay and I'm going to be okay. But this isn't really about me. It's about all of us who've been judged, suspected, and mistreated because of our skin color. I promise you I won't let this moment pass without fighting for change. Not just for me, but for everyone who comes after. Justice isn't just about one case. It's about changing the system. And that's exactly what we're going to do. The post went viral within minutes. By morning, it would have over 1 million likes and shares. But Maya didn't see that. She'd finally fallen asleep, exhausted but determined, ready for whatever came next. Police Chief Andrea Morrison sat in her office at 6 in the morning, staring at the stack of newspapers on her desk. Every single one had Maya Richardson's face on the front page. Every single headline made her department look like fools or worse. She'd been chief for 4 years, working hard to rebuild trust between the police and the community. 4 years of community outreach programs, diversity training, and careful progress. And in one morning, one officer had destroyed all of it. Her phone buzzed. The mayor. Again. That was the 3rd call since 5 a.m. Andrea. My office is flooded with calls, the mayor said without preamble. The city council is demanding answers. Do you understand how bad this looks? I'm handling it, Andrea said, though she wasn't sure that was true. Handle it faster. I want a full report by noon. And Andrea, if this goes to trial, if we lose, the settlement could bankrupt our insurance coverage, not to mention the damage to the city's reputation. After the mayor hung up, Andrea pulled up the arrest report on her computer. She'd read it 5 times already, and it made less sense each time. Hartman had written that the vehicle matched the description of a stolen car reported earlier that morning. But when Andrea checked with dispatch, no such report existed. He'd made it up. She pulled Hartman's file next. 12 years on the force. Decent arrest record. But as she dug deeper, she found something else. 17 complaints filed against him over the years. 17. Most were from Black and Hispanic residents claiming harassment, excessive force, or racial profiling. Every single complaint had been marked unfounded or insufficient evidence. Every single one had been buried. Andrea felt sick. This was on her. She should have looked deeper, should have seen the pattern. But complaints were so common and officers always had explanations. She'd trusted her department to handle internal matters fairly. She picked up her phone and called her deputy chief. Get Hartman in here, now. And I want the 2 officers who were with him during the Richardson arrest. Also, pull every body cam and dash cam footage from yesterday morning. Chief Hartman doesn't wear his body cam. Says it malfunctions. Of course he does, Andrea muttered. Get me everything we have. And I want the names of every officer who's filed equipment malfunction reports for body cameras in the past year. An hour later, Hartman sat across from her desk, still looking confident despite everything. That confidence made Andrea even angrier. Do you understand what you've done? She asked. I arrested a suspect for vehicle theft. I followed procedure. You arrested an innocent woman, a respected designer, for driving her own car, and you lied on your report. Hartman shifted in his seat. I had reasonable suspicion. Based on what? What specifically made you suspect that car was stolen? It was a high-end vehicle in a residential area. The driver's behavior was suspicious. Her behavior? She provided her license and registration immediately. She cooperated fully. What exactly was suspicious? Hartman's jaw tightened. With all due respect, Chief, you weren't there. Sometimes you just know when something isn't right. Sometimes you just know. Andrea repeated slowly. Do you understand how that sounds? You pulled over a black woman driving an expensive car because you just knew something was wrong. That's called racial profiling, Officer Hartman. That's not what happened. Andrea slid a folder across the desk. 17 complaints, 17, all from people of color. All dismissed. But I'm looking at them now with fresh eyes, and you know what I see? A pattern. A clear, undeniable pattern of discrimination. For the first time, Hartman looked nervous. Those complaints were investigated and found to be without merit. They were swept under the rug. But that's over now. As of this moment, you're suspended without pay pending a full investigation. Your badge and gun, please. You can't do this. I have rights. I was doing my job. Your job is not to arrest innocent people. Your job is not to lie on police reports. Your job is not to bring national shame to this department. Andrea stood up, her voice hard as steel. Badge and gun. Now. After Hartman left, slamming the door behind him, Andrea called in the other officer who'd been at the scene. Officer Chen looked young and scared, exactly how he should look. Tell me everything, Andrea said, and don't leave anything out. Chen talked for 20 minutes. He confirmed that Hartman had no legitimate reason for the stop, that there was no stolen vehicle report, that Maya had been completely cooperative, that the whole thing felt wrong from the start. Why didn't you speak up? Andrea asked. Chen looked down at his hands. He's senior to me. I've only been on the force for 8 months. I thought maybe I was missing something, that he knew things I didn't. You saw an injustice happening and you stayed silent. That makes you part of the problem. I know, Chen whispered. I'm sorry, Andrea sighed. Chen wasn't a bad kid, just a scared one. That was almost worse. How many good officers stayed silent while bad ones ran wild? How many times had this happened before? With no cameras there to record it. You're on desk duty while we investigate, she said. Use this time to decide what kind of officer you want to be. The rest of the morning was a nightmare. The legal team briefed her on their exposure. It was bad. Really bad. False arrest, violation of civil rights, emotional distress, defamation. The list went on. And with the video evidence and witness statements, there was no way to defend Hartman's actions. They could sue for millions, the city attorney said, and they'd probably win. What are our options? Andrea asked. Settlement, quickly and quietly. Offer an apology, some compensation, maybe agree to some minor policy changes. Make this go away before it gets worse. But Andrea had watched Maya's statement outside the station. That woman wasn't going to accept quiet, and honestly, she didn't deserve to. At noon, she held a press conference. The room was packed with reporters, cameras, and angry community members. Andrea stood at the podium, took a deep breath, and told the truth. Yesterday, one of our officers made a terrible mistake. Miss Maya Richardson was wrongfully arrested while driving her own vehicle. There was no legitimate reason for the stop. There was no stolen vehicle report. This arrest was based on assumptions and biases that have no place in law enforcement. The room erupted with shouted questions. Andrea raised her hand for quiet. I take full responsibility for this failure. As chief, I should have seen the warning signs. Officer Hartman has been suspended without pay, and we are conducting a full investigation. But I know that's not enough. Words aren't enough. We need action. She outlined immediate changes. Mandatory body cameras with no exceptions, a civilian review board for complaints, updated training on implicit bias, and a complete review of all closed complaints from the past 5 years. To Miss Richardson, Andrea continued, looking directly into the cameras, I am deeply sorry. You deserved better from us. The entire city deserves better. And I promise you we will do better. It wasn't enough. She knew it wasn't enough. But it was a start. That afternoon, Andrea received a call from Patricia Chen, Maya's lawyer. They talked for an hour, a frank and sometimes difficult conversation. Patricia laid out exactly what they wanted, and it was far more than the legal team had expected. We want Hartman fired, Patricia said. Criminal charges if possible. We want the review board to have real power, not just be advisory. We want quarterly reports on stops and arrests, broken down by race. We want transparency. That's asking a lot, Andrea said carefully. Your officer asked a lot of Miss Richardson. He asked her to sit in handcuffs while he humiliated her. He asked her to have her face broadcast around the world as a suspected criminal. He asked her to carry this trauma for the rest of her life. So yes, we're asking a lot back. Andrea was quiet for a moment. I'll need to talk to the city council. But personally, I think you're right. I think we owe her all of that and more. Then make it happen, Chief, because if you don't, we'll see you in court. And trust me, you don't want that. That evening, Andrea drove home exhausted. Her phone rang one more time. Her wife. I saw your press conference, her wife said. You did good today, did I? It feels like too little, too late. Maybe. But at least you're trying. That's more than a lot of chiefs would do. Andrea pulled into her driveway and sat there for a moment, engine running. She thought about her own daughter, who was Maya's age. Brilliant, accomplished, confident. What if this had happened to her? What if some officer had decided she didn't belong in her own success? She turned off the car and went inside. Tomorrow she'd meet with the city council. Tomorrow she'd fight for the changes Patricia demanded. Tomorrow she'd try to rebuild what had been broken. But tonight she just felt tired. Tired and ashamed and determined to do better. In another part of the city, Hartman sat in his living room, beer in hand, watching the news coverage. His wife had stopped talking to him. His friends weren't returning his calls. Even his union rep had sounded uncertain when they'd spoken earlier. He still believed he'd done nothing wrong. The chief was just throwing him under the bus to look good. Everyone was overreacting. It was all about politics now, not about good police work. But as he watched Maya Richardson's interview, something nagged at him. The grace in her voice, the intelligence in her eyes, the list of her accomplishments scrolling across the screen. For just a moment, a tiny voice in his head whispered, "What if you were wrong?" 2 weeks after the arrest, Maya sat in Patricia's office overlooking the city. Outside, the streets buzzed with afternoon traffic. Inside, everything felt still and heavy with the weight of the decision ahead. "They've made their final offer," Patricia said, sliding a document across her polished desk. "It's substantial, Maya. Really substantial." Maya picked up the paper. The number at the top made her breath catch. $2.5 million. More money than she'd ever imagined having all at once. Money that could change her life, her family's life, for generations. "There's a catch, though," Patricia continued. "There's always a catch. They want you to sign a non-disclosure agreement. You can't talk about the arrest, the settlement, any of it. The whole thing disappears like it never happened." Maya set the paper down. "They want to buy my silence." "That's exactly what they want. They'll issue a statement saying the matter has been resolved to everyone's satisfaction. Hartman gets fired. You get paid. Everyone moves on. Clean and simple." "Except it's not clean," Maya said. "And it's not simple." Patricia leaned back in her chair, studying her client. "No, it's not. But I have to ask you something, and I need you to really think about it. What do you want out of this?" Maya stood and walked to the window. From here, she could see the police station in the distance. She'd been thinking about this question for 2 weeks straight, turning it over in her mind at 3 a.m. when sleep wouldn't come. "Tell me what happens if I don't take the settlement," she said. "We go to trial. It could take a year, maybe 2. You'll be questioned, cross-examined, picked apart by their lawyers. They'll try to find any mistake you've ever made, any moment in your life they can use against you. It'll be stressful, exhausting, and very public. And if we win? If we win, you might get more money, or you might get less. Juries are unpredictable. But more importantly, we can push for systemic changes, real reforms. A trial means discovery, which means we can dig into all the department's dirty laundry. Every complaint, every pattern, everything. We can expose it all." Maya turned back to face her lawyer. "My family thinks I should take the money." "What does your family say exactly?" "My mom worries about the stress. She says I've already been through enough. My dad wants me to fight, but he also doesn't want to see me hurt anymore. My brother thinks I should become an activist, use this as a platform." Maya smiled sadly. "Everyone has an opinion." "But what's your opinion?" Patricia asked. "Not what anyone else thinks. What does Maya Richardson want?" Maya sat back down. "When I was in that cell listening to those officers laugh about me, make assumptions about who I was and how I got what I have, I kept thinking about something my father told me when I graduated from MIT. She paused, remembering that day. Her father, tall and proud in his best suit, tears in his eyes. He said, "Baby girl, you've made it. You've climbed higher than I ever could. But don't forget the people still climbing behind you. Success isn't just about you. It's about opening doors and holding them wide." Patricia was quiet, waiting. "If I take this money and sign that paper, the door closes," Maya continued. My story disappears. And the next person, and the person after that, they'll go through the same thing. Maybe worse because they won't have what I have. They won't have resources or a platform or people paying attention. That's not your responsibility, Patricia said gently. You didn't ask for this. You were just driving to work. I know, but it happened anyway. And now I have a choice. I can make this about me, or I can make this about something bigger. Maya picked up the settlement offer again, this time really reading through all the details. The money would be amazing. She could pay off her parents' house, set up trust funds for her nieces and nephews. Never worry about finances again. All she had to do was stay quiet. But then she thought about the hashtag, about the thousands of people who'd shared their own stories. She thought about the teenager who'd filmed her arrest and the woman who'd stood up to Hartman. She thought about all the names that never made the news, all the stories that never went viral because no one was there to film them. I want to fight, Maya said finally. I want real change. Patricia smiled, but it was bittersweet. I was hoping you'd say that, but I need you to understand what you're choosing. This won't be easy. They'll come after you with everything they have. Let them come. They'll dig into your past. That party photo from college? That's just the beginning. They'll talk to ex-boyfriends, old roommates, anyone who might say something negative about you. I'm not perfect. I've never claimed to be. But I didn't do anything wrong, and I won't pretend I did just to make their job easier. Patricia's smile grew. There's something else you should know. Since your story went public, we've been contacted by 14 other people. 14 people who've had run-ins with Hartman over the years. People who filed complaints that went nowhere. People who didn't have the resources to fight back. If we go to trial, they want to testify. Maya felt something shift in her chest. 14 people? 14 that we know of. There might be more. Your story gave them courage to speak up. Patricia leaned forward. Maya, if we do this right, we can make sure Hartman never wears a badge again. More than that, we can create a blueprint for change that other cities can follow. Your case could matter beyond just you. What do I need to do? First, we turn down the settlement. Then we file a federal civil rights lawsuit. We're not just going after Hartman. We're going after the system that protected him. The culture that let him get away with this for 12 years. Maya nodded slowly. Do it. File everything. They spent the next 2 hours going through the details. Patricia explained the timeline, the process, what to expect. Maya listened carefully, asking questions, taking notes. This was too important to leave anything to chance. When Maya finally left the office, it was evening. She sat in her car for a moment, her phone in her hand. She needed to call her family, tell them her decision. But first, she opened her social media. The support hadn't faded. If anything, it had grown. People were organizing rallies, creating art, writing articles. Her story had sparked something, a conversation that the country apparently desperately needed to have. She composed a post carefully, writing and rewriting until it felt right. Update. I've been offered a settlement that would make this all go away quietly. I've decided not to take it. Some things are more important than money or comfort. This fight isn't just about me anymore. It's about accountability, justice, and making sure this doesn't keep happening to others. It won't be easy, but nothing worth doing ever is. Thank you for standing with me. The real work is just beginning. She hit post and immediately called her mother. Mama, she said when her mother answered. I need to tell you something. I'm not taking the settlement. There was a long pause. Then her mother's voice came through, thick with emotion. I know, baby, I knew you wouldn't. You're too much like your father. You're not upset? Upset? No. Terrified for you? Yes. Proud of you? More than you'll ever know. Her mother took a shaky breath. When you were little, do you remember when that teacher said you couldn't be good at math and art? That you had to choose? Maya smiled at the memory. I told her I'd be good at both just to prove her wrong. And you were. Because you've never backed down from a challenge and you've never let anyone tell you who you could or couldn't be. So go fight, baby. We're right here with you. After talking with her mother, Maya called her brother. He answered on the first ring. Did you take it? He asked immediately. No. Yes. She could hear the grin in his voice. I knew you wouldn't. You're going to change everything, sis. I just know it. Or I'm going to spend the next 2 years in a legal battle that drains me emotionally and financially. Maybe, but at least you'll know you stood up. That matters. Maya drove home slowly, taking the long way. She passed the spot where Hartman had pulled her over. Someone had left flowers there, and a sign that said, "We stand with Maya." She'd heard about the memorial but hadn't seen it yet. It made her chest tight with emotion. At home, she made tea and sat on her balcony, watching the city lights flicker on as darkness fell. Her phone buzzed constantly with reactions to her post. Most were supportive, encouraging. Some were critical, saying she was being foolish, that she should take the money while she could. She ignored those and focused on the messages from people thanking her. From parents who said they'd show their kids what it meant to stand up for what's right. From other professionals who'd faced discrimination but never spoke up. From young designers who said she inspired them. One message in particular caught her eye. It was from the teenager who'd filmed her arrest. "Miss Richardson, you don't know me, but I'm the kid who recorded your arrest. I just wanted to say thank you for not letting them sweep this under the rug. My older brother was harassed by police last year and nothing happened. No one cared. But you're making people care. You're making people see. That matters more than you know." Maya read the message 3 times, then saved it. On the days when this fight got hard, when she questioned her decision, she'd remember this. She'd remember that her voice could amplify others who hadn't been heard. She responded simply, "Thank you for filming. Thank you for caring. We're in this together." 3 months into the lawsuit, Maya barely recognized her own life anymore. The woman who'd been simply driving to work that morning felt like a different person, someone from another lifetime. Every day brought new challenges. The city's legal team had filed motion after motion, trying to get the case dismissed on technicalities. They argued that Maya hadn't followed proper complaint procedures, that she'd gone to the media too quickly, that she was seeking fame rather than justice. Each motion was defeated, but each one took time, energy, and emotional toll. Patricia's office had become Maya's second home. Today they were preparing for depositions, and Patricia was walking her through what to expect. "They're going to try to rattle you," Patricia explained, pacing in front of the windows. "Their lawyer is a man named Richard Dawson. He's known for being aggressive, especially with plaintiffs. He'll ask you the same questions 17 different ways, hoping you'll contradict yourself." "I'm ready," Maya said, though her stomach churned. "They'll bring up everything. Every job you've ever left. Every bad review you've ever gotten. Every relationship that ended badly. They're going to paint a picture of you as someone who plays the victim, who blames others for your problems." Maya had expected this, but hearing it laid out so plainly still stung. "My employment record is excellent, I know. But they found a review from 5 years ago where a colleague said you were difficult to work with. They're going to blow that up into you being a troublemaker." "That colleague was upset because I got promoted over him," Maya said, "and it was one review out of hundreds of positive ones." "I know, but they only need to plant doubt. That's their strategy." Patricia sat down across from Maya. "How are you holding up?" "Really?" Maya considered the question. "Some days are harder than others. I went to the grocery store last week and people recognized me. Some wanted to take pictures and tell me I was brave. Others glared at me like I was the problem. That's the price of being public." "I know." Maya twisted her hands in her lap. "But it's strange being famous for the worst day of your life. Everywhere I go, people have opinions about me, about what happened, about what I should do. Everyone thinks they know my story, but they only know the version they saw on their screens." Her phone buzzed. Another news alert. The story still made headlines regularly. Yesterday it was about the 14 witnesses who'd come forward. Today it was a think piece about racial profiling and traffic stops. Tomorrow, who knew? "We got the department's complaint records," Patricia said, changing the subject. She pulled out a thick folder. "Maya, it's worse than we thought. In the past 5 years, they've received over 200 complaints about racial profiling. Guess how many resulted in any disciplinary action?" "How many?" Three out of 200. And those 3 were just written warnings. No suspensions, no terminations, nothing." Maya felt sick. 200 people tried to speak up and they were all ignored? Not just ignored. dismissed, discredited. In one case, a man filed a complaint and then found himself arrested 2 weeks later on what looks like trumped-up charges. He dropped the complaint. That's intimidation. That's the system protecting itself. Patricia's expression was grim. But here's what's interesting. We cross-referenced the complaints with the officers named, and guess who shows up most frequently? Hartman, 43 times. 43 complaints against one officer, and he was never seriously disciplined. Never required to take additional training. Never put on desk duty. Nothing. Maya stood and walked to the window looking out at the city below. Somewhere out there, Hartman was living his life, probably telling anyone who'd listen that he was the real victim in all this. Somewhere out there, dozens of people carried the trauma of their encounters with him, dismissed and disbelieved. "We need to make sure this gets out," Maya said. "People need to know. We will. But carefully. We can't jeopardize the case." The deposition took place the following week in a sterile conference room. Dawson, the city's lawyer, was exactly as Patricia had described, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit with cold eyes and a condescending smile. Maya sat across from him, Patricia beside her, a court reporter in the corner. Dawson arranged his papers deliberately, letting the silence stretch, a power play Maya recognized immediately. "Miss Richardson," he began, his voice deceptively pleasant. "Or do you prefer Dr. Richardson? Either is fine. You have a PhD in industrial design from MIT, is that correct?" "Yes, very impressive. You must be quite intelligent." Patricia's warning glance told Maya this was a setup. "I worked hard for my degree." "I'm sure you did." Dawson smiled. "So someone as intelligent as you must understand how police procedures work, correct? You understand that officers need to make split-second decisions, often with incomplete information? I understand that officers have difficult jobs. I don't understand why that means they can arrest innocent people without cause." "Without cause." Dawson repeated the word slowly. "You were driving an expensive vehicle in a residential area. Doesn't that seem unusual to you?" Maya kept her voice steady. "No, I live in a residential area. I drive my car to work every day through residential areas. There's nothing unusual about that. But you have to admit it's quite a car. Not many people can afford a vehicle like that. I designed it. It's a prototype. And I can afford it because I've worked in my field for over 10 years and I'm very good at what I do." Dawson flipped through his notes. "Let's talk about your employment history. You left your previous position at Dynamic Motors after only 2 years. Why such a short stay?" "I was recruited by Velocity Motors for a better position with more creative freedom." "Or were you encouraged to leave because of conflicts with colleagues?" Patricia cut in. "That's speculation, and you know it, Richard." Dawson shrugged. "Miss Richardson, did you have conflicts with colleagues at Dynamic Motors?" "I had professional disagreements about design directions. That's normal in creative fields. But I left on excellent terms and even consulted for them after I left." The questions continued for hours. Dawson asked about her college years, her dating history, her social media posts, her friendships. He pulled out the party photo from college and asked if she had a drinking problem. He questioned whether she'd really designed her car or just supervised others who did the work. Through it all, Maya remained calm and factual. She didn't let him provoke her into anger or defensive statements. Patricia had trained her well. But when they finally broke for the day, Maya felt exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical tiredness. It was the exhaustion of having to defend your entire existence, of having every accomplishment questioned, every motive doubted. "You did great," Patricia said in the elevator afterward. "Really great. You didn't give him anything he could use. Is it always like that? Usually worse. You handled him better than most clients do." Outside, a small group of protesters had gathered. They held signs, "Justice for Maya" and "End Police Racism" and "Black Lives Matter." When they saw Maya, they cheered. She waved, feeling a complicated mix of gratitude and burden. These people believed in her, supported her. She couldn't let them down. A young woman approached, maybe 20 years old, with tears in her eyes. "Miss Richardson? I just wanted to thank you. My dad was pulled over 8 times last year for no reason. 8 times. And every time we were terrified something bad would happen. Your lawsuit, what you're doing, it matters to families like mine." Maya hugged her, feeling the woman's tears on her shoulder. "Thank you for telling me that. It helps on the hard days." Later that night, Maya sat in her apartment with her brother. He'd come over with takeout, sensing she needed company. "How bad was it?" he asked, handing her a container of noodles. "Imagine having to justify your entire life to someone who's already decided you're lying." That's what it was like. Her brother shook his head. "I don't know how you do it. If someone questioned me like that, I'd lose it. You'd be surprised what you can handle when you have to." Maya picked at her food. "Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. The settlement money sounds really good right about now." "You made the right choice. You know you did." "Do I? Some days I'm not sure. Some days I think I'm putting myself through all this stress for a system that doesn't want to change. But what if it does change? What if, because of you, the next person doesn't have to go through this?" Maya smiled despite her exhaustion. "When did my little brother get so wise?" "I learned from the best." He nudged her shoulder. "Seriously, though, you've already changed things. Mom told me that her church started a program teaching people their rights during traffic stops. Your old high school invited you to speak. Cities are looking at their own police complaint processes because of your case. That's impact, sis." He was right, but the wins felt small compared to the daily grind of the lawsuit. Still, they were wins. Over the next few weeks, more depositions followed. Patricia deposed Hartman, who maintained that he'd done nothing wrong and was being persecuted for doing his job. She deposed the desk sergeant, who suddenly couldn't remember much about that day. She deposed Chief Morrison, who admitted the department had failed in its oversight. The 14 witnesses gave their depositions too. Each story was heartbreaking. A teacher pulled over for matching a description while driving to school. The courthouse steps were packed with people on the first day of trial. News crews from around the country had set up their equipment, reporters practicing their opening lines. Protesters held signs on both sides of the entrance. Some supported Maya. Others held signs reading "Back the Blue" and "Stop False Accusations." Maya walked up those steps with Patricia beside her, her parents behind her. She'd chosen her outfit carefully, a navy suit, professional but not too formal. Her hair pulled back simply. She wanted the jury to see her as she was, not as either side wanted to portray her. Inside, the courtroom was beautiful in an intimidating way. High ceilings, dark wood, everything designed to remind you of the weight of justice. Maya took her seat at the plaintiff's table, her hands folded to hide their shaking. The jury filed in. 12 people who would decide her case, her vindication, her future. Patricia had spent days selecting them, trying to find people who could be fair, who could look past their own biases. Maya studied their faces, wondering what they saw when they looked at her. Judge Catherine Walsh entered, and everyone stood. She was a black woman in her 60s, known for being fair but tough. Patricia had been pleased with the assignment, though she'd warned Maya not to expect any favoritism. If anything, Judge Walsh would probably be harder on them to avoid any appearance of bias. The opening statements began. Dawson went first, his voice confident and smooth. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about a police officer doing his job. Officer Hartman saw a suspicious situation and investigated it, as he was trained to do. Miss Richardson was driving an extremely expensive vehicle through a quiet neighborhood. When Officer Hartman attempted to verify her story, she became defensive and uncooperative. What happened next was unfortunate, yes, but it was the result of miscommunication, not malice. The plaintiff wants you to believe this was about race. We will show you it was about procedure, about an officer following his training in a difficult situation. He painted Maya as opportunistic, someone who saw a chance to cash in on a minor misunderstanding and turned it into a federal case. He mentioned the settlement offer she'd refused, implying she was more interested in attention than resolution. Then it was Patricia's turn. She stood slowly, walking to the jury box, making eye contact with each juror. My client, Dr. Maya Richardson, was driving to work. That's all. She was driving her own car, a car she designed with her own hands, to her job where she's been a respected leader for 8 years. And for that ordinary act, she was pulled from her vehicle, handcuffed, arrested, and held for hours. Why, the defense says procedure. I say prejudice. Patricia detailed Hartman's history, the 43 complaints, the pattern of targeting people of color. She described the lack of any stolen vehicle report, the lies on the arrest report, the humiliation Maya suffered. This isn't about one bad day. This is about a system that failed. A system that let Officer Hartman terrorize citizens for 12 years without consequences. A system that looked at Dr. Richardson and saw a criminal instead of the accomplished professional she is. By the end of this trial, you'll see clearly that what happened that morning wasn't procedure. It was wrong. And it's time to make it right. The first witness was the teenager who'd filmed the arrest. Now 18, he sat nervously in the witness box as Patricia questioned him. "Tell us what you saw that morning," Patricia said gently. "I was on my porch when I heard the police siren. I looked over and saw Officer Hartman pulling over this nice car. At first I didn't think much of it, but then I saw him get aggressive with the driver. She was cooperating, giving him her documents, but he kept getting louder and angrier." "What made you decide to film it?" "My mom always tells me to record police interactions just in case. She says you never know what might happen, especially to people who look like us. So I pulled out my phone and recorded." "And what did you capture?" "I recorded Miss Richardson being calm and polite while Officer Hartman accused her of stealing the car. She kept trying to explain, but he wouldn't listen. Then he arrested her even though she hadn't done anything wrong. You could see it in her face. She was scared but trying to stay composed." On cross-examination, Dawson tried to suggest the teenager's angle didn't show everything, that perhaps Maya had been confrontational before the recording started. But the teenager held firm. He knew what he saw. The woman in yoga pants testified next, then the older man with the dog. Both confirmed that Maya had been cooperative, that Hartman had been aggressive and dismissive. Both said it had felt wrong to watch. "I've seen police make arrests before," the woman said. "This didn't feel like a normal one. It felt personal, like the officer had already decided she was guilty and was just looking for a reason to prove it." Dawson attacked their credibility, suggested they were influenced by media coverage, that their memories had been shaped by the narrative around the case, but they stood by their testimony. Then came the 14 witnesses, one by one, each telling their own story of encounters with Hartman. A pattern emerged so clear that even Dawson struggled to dismiss it. Every victim was a person of color. Every encounter involved Hartman making assumptions, seeing threats where none existed, escalating situations that should have been routine. One woman described being pulled over while driving her husband's car. Hartman had insisted she was lying about the ownership, had made her sit on the curb while he ran checks that took 2 hours. She'd been late picking up her daughter from school and had filed a complaint that went nowhere. A young man described being stopped while jogging, accused of running from a crime scene. There was no crime. There never had been. But Hartman had detained him, searched him roughly, and only let him go when his mother came out of their house nearby. Each story chipped away at the defense's narrative. This wasn't about one officer making one mistake. This was about a pattern of behavior, sanctioned by silence. Chief Morrison testified, looking uncomfortable in her uniform. Patricia questioned her about the complaint system, about why so many complaints had been dismissed. "In hindsight, we failed," Morrison admitted. "We failed to see the pattern. We failed to take these complaints seriously. We failed the community we're sworn to protect." "And why did you fail?" Patricia asked. Morrison took a breath. "Because we protected our own. Because it was easier to dismiss complaints than to believe officers could be wrong. Because we'd rather avoid conflict than confront it. We failed because we forgot that accountability is supposed to apply to everyone." It was a damning admission, one that Dawson tried to walk back on cross-examination but couldn't fully erase. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Hartman took the stand. He looked different than he had at the arrest. Older, thinner, worn down. He'd been fired 3 months ago and the stress showed. But when Dawson questioned him, his old confidence returned. "I saw a high-end vehicle in a residential area," Hartman explained. "In my experience, that can indicate stolen property. I pulled her over to investigate." "And why did you arrest Miss Richardson?" Dawson asked. "She was uncooperative. She questioned my authority. She refused to comply with my orders." "Was race a factor in your decision?" "Absolutely not. I treat everyone the same, regardless of race." But then came Patricia's cross-examination and everything changed. "Officer Hartman, you said you treat everyone the same. Is that why you have 43 complaints against you, all from people of color? Those complaints were investigated and found to be without merit. Or were they buried? Let me ask you this. In your 12 years on the force, how many white drivers did you arrest for vehicle theft?" Hartman paused. "I'd have to check my records. Let me help you. The answer is 0, not 1. But you've arrested 7 people of color for vehicle theft. Interesting pattern, don't you think?" That's just coincidence? Coincidence. Patricia walked to her table and picked up a document. Is it also coincidence that in your incident reports you described black suspects as aggressive and threatening 3 times more often than white suspects, even when the circumstances were similar? I describe situations as I see them. You see what you expect to see. You looked at Dr. Richardson, a highly educated professional woman, and saw a criminal. Why? Because she was black and driving a nice car, and in your mind, those two things didn't fit together. That's not true. Then explain to this jury why you didn't call Velocity Motors to verify her story. Explain why you didn't run a proper check for stolen vehicle reports. Explain why you lied on your arrest report and said a vehicle had been reported stolen when no such report existed. Hartman's face reddened. I made a judgment call based on my experience. Your biased experience. Your prejudiced assumptions. Patricia's voice was sharp now, cutting. You saw a black woman in an expensive car and your first thought was criminal, not owner. Admit it. I followed procedure. You followed your prejudice. Patricia slammed her hand on the witness box. And Dr. Richardson paid the price. She was handcuffed, arrested, humiliated, all because you couldn't see past your own bias. That's not police work, Officer Hartman. That's racism. Objection. Dawson was on his feet. Sustained, Judge Walsh said. Ms. Chen reined it in, but the damage was done. The jury had seen Hartman lose his composure. 2 years after the verdict, Maya stood in front of a packed auditorium at a university, sharing her story with students who looked at her like she was a hero. She still wasn't comfortable with that word, but she'd learned to accept it. The most important thing to understand, she told the students, is that change doesn't happen overnight. Winning the case was just the beginning. The real work came after, and it had been work. Exhausting, frustrating, sometimes heartbreaking work, but also meaningful work that made her feel like that terrible morning had led to something bigger than herself. The $9 million verdict had shocked everyone. But Maya had been true to her word. She'd kept enough to secure her future and help her family, but the rest went into establishing the Richardson Justice Fund. It provided legal support for people who experienced police misconduct, but couldn't afford to fight back. In 2 years, they'd helped 38 cases, winning 23 of them. The fund also created educational programs, teaching communities about their rights during police encounters. They held workshops in schools, churches, community centers. They printed pocket-sized cards with instructions on what to do if you were pulled over, how to file complaints, where to find help. Maya's mother ran the community outreach program. Her brother handled the social media and youth engagement. Even her father, retired now, volunteered as a mentor for young people who'd had traumatic encounters with police. It had become a family mission, but the fund was just one piece of the change that rippled out from that courthouse victory. The city had been forced to implement real reforms. The civilian review board that Maya and Patricia had fought for now had actual power, not just the ability to make recommendations that got ignored. Every sustained complaint now resulted in mandatory retraining at minimum, and serious violations meant immediate suspension while investigations took place. Body cameras became mandatory for every officer, with no exceptions. Officers who claimed equipment malfunctions more than once a quarter faced disciplinary hearings. The footage was stored independently and couldn't be deleted by the department. Already the cameras had prevented 3 situations from escalating and had exonerated 4 officers falsely accused of misconduct. The department's complaint process was overhauled completely. Now complaints could be filed online, by mail, or in person at community centers. Not just at the police station where victims often felt intimidated. An independent investigator reviewed every complaint, and the findings were made public unless they involved active criminal investigations. Chief Morrison had kept her job, surprising many. But she'd earned it by becoming the department's biggest advocate for change. She gave talks at other police departments about accountability. She'd fired 8 more officers with patterns of misconduct. She'd promoted 3 officers of color to leadership positions and completely revamped the training program. It's not perfect, Morrison had told Maya at a community meeting 6 months ago. We still have work to do. But we're trying. Really trying. Maya appreciated her honesty. Change was messy and slow, but it was happening. The impact spread beyond their city. Other cities saw what happened and started examining their own practices. Maya became a reluctant spokesperson. traveling to speak at conferences, meeting with city councils and police departments. She showed them that accountability wasn't about attacking police. It was about making everyone safer by ensuring officers operated with integrity. Some departments welcomed her message. Others resisted, calling her an agitator or worse. She'd learned to handle both responses with grace, though the hostile ones still stung. Her career at Velocity Motors had evolved too. She was still designing cars, still doing the work she loved, but now she also consulted on their corporate social responsibility programs. They'd created scholarships for students of color studying design and engineering. They'd partnered with organizations working on criminal justice reform. They used their platform, and Maya helped guide that work. The prototype car, the one that had started everything, had been returned to her after the trial. For months it sat in her garage, too painful to look at, but eventually she'd made a decision about its future. Now it sat in the National Museum of African American History and Culture, in an exhibit about civil rights in the modern era. A plaque beside it told her story, but also the stories of the 14 witnesses who'd found the courage to speak up. It told the story of the teenager with the phone, the woman in yoga pants, all the people who'd chosen to be on the right side of justice. Maya visited the museum once, standing in front of her own car with tears in her eyes. A little girl, maybe 8 years old, had tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mommy, did that really happen? Did police really arrest her for her own car?" The mother, a black woman with tired eyes, had knelt down to her daughter's level. "Yes, baby, it did. But she fought back. She made them listen, and that's why we have to keep fighting too." Maya had introduced herself and ended up talking with them for an hour, the little girl asking questions with the fearless curiosity of childhood. The mother had cried when Maya hugged her goodbye. "Thank you," the mother had whispered. "Thank you for not staying quiet." Those moments made everything worthwhile. The stress of the trial, the invasion of her privacy, the hate mail she still occasionally received, all of it felt bearable when she saw the impact. Patricia had become more than just her lawyer. She was a friend, a mentor, a partner in the work they continued to do together. They'd co-authored a guide for lawyers taking on police misconduct cases, sharing strategies and resources. They'd testified before Congress about the need for federal standards on police accountability. "You know what's funny?" Patricia said one day over coffee. "When you first came to my office, I thought this would be a straightforward case. Win the settlement, move on. I never imagined it would turn into all this." "Regret taking me on as a client?" Maya teased. "Never. You've reminded me why I became a lawyer in the first place, to make a difference, not just to win cases." Maya's personal life had found balance too. She'd started dating again, someone she met at a conference who understood her mission and supported it. She'd reconnected with old friends who'd drifted away during the intensity of the trial. She'd learned to take time for herself, to rest, to remember that she was more than just the woman from that news story. But she never forgot. On the anniversary of her arrest each year, she visited the spot where Hartman had pulled her over. Someone always left flowers there now. It had become an unofficial memorial to everyone who'd experienced similar injustice. This year, she wasn't alone. Dozens of people gathered with her, sharing stories, supporting each other, committing to continuing the work. The teenager who'd filmed her arrest was there, now in college studying criminal justice. "I want to be a good cop," he'd told her. "The kind who remembers we're here to serve people, not control them." The woman in yoga pants was there, now volunteering with the Richardson Justice Fund. Several of the 14 witnesses came, some bringing family members who'd had their own encounters with police. Chief Morrison even showed up, standing at the edge of the gathering, respectfully quiet but present. Maya spoke to the group, her voice carrying across the quiet morning air. 2 years ago today, I was angry, hurt, humiliated. I wanted justice, yes, but I also wanted revenge. I wanted Officer Hartman to hurt the way he'd hurt me." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "But I've learned something important. Real justice isn't about punishment. It's about change. It's about making sure what happened to me doesn't keep happening to others." She looked around at all the faces, young and old, of every race and background, all united by a belief in fairness and accountability. "We've made progress, real progress, but we're not done. There are still officers out there who abuse their power, still departments that protect bad cops instead of the communities they serve, still people who get pulled over and never make it home. We honor them by not giving up, by staying loud, by demanding better. The crowd applauded, and Maya felt the familiar mix of grief and hope that always came with this work. Grief for the injustice that persisted, hope that each small victory led to larger change. Later that day, Maya returned to Velocity Motors. She had a presentation to give, a new design to unveil. Life had moved forward as it always did, but she was different now, shaped by fire into something stronger. Her office walls were covered with photos and mementos from the past 2 years. Thank you letters from people the fund had helped, pictures of her speaking at events, a framed copy of the jury verdict, the hashtag The Carnage Justice for Maya printed and signed by all her supporters. But her favorite item was a drawing from the little girl at the museum. It showed Maya standing next to her car, cape flowing behind her like a superhero. Underneath, in crayon, "Thank you for being brave." Maya wasn't sure she'd been brave. Most days she'd just been stubborn, too angry to quit, too aware of what was at stake to back down. But if her stubbornness looked like bravery to a little girl who needed heroes, she could live with that. Her phone buzzed. A text from Patricia, new case. Woman pulled over in Riverside last week. Officer made racist comments. She wants to fight. Interested? Maya looked at the message for a long moment. Part of her wanted to say no,